good morning. At least it's morning on the West Coast. I'm Beth Ann Gerstein, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Museum of Ceramic Art. And I'd like to welcome you to our 2023 Artist in Residence Information Session. I want to thank you for joining us. A few logistics before we get started. If everyone could remain muted for the first portion of the session, we'll do some staff introductions before handing it off to some of our recent cohort of artists who have participated in the residency. And please note that this session is being recorded. The Artist in Residency program is one of the few long-term residency opportunities for ceramic artists on the West Coast. It was established at AMOCA in 2012, and thanks to two remarkable grants from the Wingate Foundation, the program is growing from its humble beginnings into a residency program that aspires to be competitive with the best ceramic residency programs in the country. It doesn't hurt that the museum is located an hour from the desert, an hour from the mountains, and an hour from the beaches of Southern California. And we're about 40 minutes east of Los Angeles, depending on traffic. The application deadline for 2023-24 is January 31st, the end of this month. And in the interest of equity, a number of donors have come together and provided funding to remove the application fee this year. Starting in 2021, donors made it possible for the program to support up to 2 fully funded concurrent residencies for ceramic artists. Each long-term residency is intended to last 10 to 12 months. And thanks to enhanced support from the Wingate Foundation, we've been able to add 3 additional 4-month residencies, or 4 to 6 months, for artists already living and working in Southern California. Every residency includes a semi-private studio, a materials stipend, a firing stipend, and for long-term residents, $100 a week. And for long-term residents, you also get a furnished apartment. Residents receive AMOCA membership benefits for the duration of the residency, and we hope that residents will take advantage of behind-the-scenes access to the museum facilities and collections afforded by your special relationship with our museum staff. In the past, some residents have also sought out teaching and workshop opportunities within the studio and at local colleges. So before I hand it over to Nathan Stanfield, who's our AMOCA studio manager, I want to say a heartfelt thanks to Julianne and David Armstrong, Brian and Joy Van Sel at Laguna Clay, and the Wingate Foundation. It is through their support and vision that the museum is able to provide these residency opportunities for ceramic artists. And with that, take it away, Nathan.
Thank you, Beth. Hello, everyone. I'm Nathan, and I'll be your main point of contact for the residency program and all things related to the residency at AMOCA. Our studio is just over 12,000 square feet and equipped with numerous tools, such as slab rollers, extruders, Soldner mixer, Bluebird pug mill, premix cone 10 glazes, and we have a full library of dry materials. There are 6 electric scut kilns in different sizes, 3 guile gas kilns in different sizes, and then we have a salt and a soda kiln. There's a large sandblaster, a tile saw, spray booth. We have access to an on-site woodworking studio. There's forklifts, pallet jacks, a kitchen, and a new pizza kiln. So thank you, Colby, for the pizza kiln. What we expect from our residents during the residency is really just a minimum of 20 hours per week of active studio time, although it usually turns out to be much more than that. A regular participation in monthly AMOCA events, and for you to bring unique perspectives and experiences to AMOCA through engagement with students, members, and visitors. An introduction to yourself and your artwork to the community in the form of an artist talk or visual presentation. For long-term residencies, it's usually 2 of these, one at the beginning, one at the end. For short-term residents, we're doing kind of one at the end of the residency. A final summary. Never mind. I just went over that. It's now my pleasure to introduce some current and former artists in residence who I'm very grateful that are joining us today, Colby Charpentier and Brianna Ferreira. So Brianna, perhaps you could start us off by sharing your residency dates and telling us a bit about your experience so far.
Yeah, thank you. I arrived here in September, and I think I'm going to end probably at the end of August, early September in that area. And how in depth do you want me to go? Because you know me, I can talk for hours.
Just so far, how has it been?
Okay.
What have you been working on?
Yeah.
Your day, like your week to week, your teaching experiences too, because you've been doing a lot of teaching, and your engagement, sort of.
Okay, yeah. So I'm in the studio. I try to be there pretty much every day. I try to treat it like a 9 to 5. I think we all know though that doing this, you come home with it, your brain never stops. So I try to have a pretty balanced relationship in the studio. And here at Amoka, I really wanted to take advantage of the teaching opportunities and the access to the museum side of this environment. So I've made it a point to not only get really involved in teaching, but once a week I work at the front desk at the museum, and every now and then I get to sneak back into the collections and kind of talk to people about that process, how things are organized. I get to learn a lot about the cleaner side of this whole world, and then retreat back to the messy, the beautiful messiness of the studio. So I typically will teach 3 times a week. We have a great system here where we teach for about 6 weeks and then we get like a nice month break. So that allows you to learn how to juggle education and your own practice, and then have a month of a breather to then really focus in on the studio. So I've primarily been working on balancing all of these things because I was really interested in getting a taste of everything. And right now I'm working on some deadlines in the studio. And I'm a potter, so there's a lot of repetition happening, a lot of nuances that occur with iterations. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on right now.
Excellent. Thanks, Brianna. Now let's give previous resident Colby a chance to share some of his experiences. Colby?
There we are. All right. Great. So I was in residence at Amoka in September of 2021 for the full year through August. And what was interesting is it was a similar transition for me from coming out of a school setting and then sort of reestablishing making in the world. And it's a scenario where everything's taken care of. I mean, you're given a place to live, you're given a studio, you're given materials and funding. And the studio itself, because you have the 45 artists or so renting space there, it's this own sort of productive little space. And so you sort of drop into that and you have built-in community and people who are showing up every day and working and making things. And then beyond that, I mean, it's LA's right there. So sort of making the trips out to see that, and then the artist talks coming in. And so for me, it became just a nice space to get comfortable making again. The academic sort of scenario is something where you're constantly questioning and maybe a little uncomfortable. And this was just sort of a nice time to breathe and relax. And the other great thing is because it's like everything's comped in terms of materials and firings, I was able to work out a lot of work with like the brick lattice or the plaster clay mixes, where it's just sort of this free for all of really whatever you want to do. It's there. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing to bring up about the studio space in general. There's people who rent space, kind of like their own private spaces. So there is that community of, between 45 and 60 or however many it tends to be of people who are showing up every day to work. So we do have classes also, but those people tend to kind of stick to, the classroom for open studio time and all that. But we do have a good little mini cohort of people who are coming in and working. So everybody, it's a good little community. People become familiar with one another. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just say really quick, when I arrived, I was very nervous because you get this space that's really great in size, and mine in particular is in this lovely little corner. But then you realize that you are like learning to work amongst the eyes of many, and there are a lot of tours that come in frequently. So you get used to being on a lot, which I kind of like, because it, as much as I love working with headphones in, it actually encourages me to not disconnect so much from my environment. So I'm a bit more present with the people within the space and with my own process, which is nice. But balancing those things was a little difficult in the beginning. That took a second to get used to, but everyone's so sweet. Like, the women of the studio are always feeding us residents, and like they're the best. Our kitchen is fantastic, and we always have just these very fabulous gatherings, and it's very friendly from the beginning. So
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for adding that. So I guess we'll transition into some questions now. So thank you all for being here. So either feel free to, put the little raised hand emoji and we can call on you, or add a question to the chat and we'll go over it. But yeah, let's see what we got. I'm sure there's a lot of things we didn't necessarily cover. So please do ask, or if you think of something later, you can email me. I'll put my email down in the chat. I'm happy to answer at a later date too. And for those of you who are local or live in the area and haven't been to the studio before, please also reach out. I'm happy to give anybody and everybody a tour to kind of get your head wrapped around what the space looks like. All right, so we got some questions in the chat. So from Nick, could you go over the kilns again? Yeah, there are, I think, one of the electrics is down. So 5 electric kilns, varying in size from like a small little test kiln to a large sort of oval kiln. And then 3 gas kilns. 2 of them are front loaders. One's a car kiln, kind of the larger of the 3. And then there's a 16 cubic foot soda kiln and a 16 cubic foot salt kiln outside. So plenty of kilns. We usually book things through iCalendar. So because we also rent kilns out to Southern California, so we are competing with other bookings. So, obviously residents get first dibs sort of. So we book everything through there. Usually hasn't been an issue. Firings at this point are all covered through the stipends. We haven't really had any issues. People overusing the usage or high bills yet. So far that's good. Do let me know if I left something out of that question.
Just to chime in real quick on the kiln usage, the system that I had sort of figured out is a lot of the studio firings happen during the sort of like work week. And I found it was really easy to just slip into kilns on the weekend. And that was a system where as soon as a kiln was fired, sometimes you'd unload a kiln and then hop right into it. Or it was just really easy to work around with, hop in when you can. And
yeah,
you can plan the bigger firings, like with the gas kilns especially. It's a tighter thing, but there are maybe 4 or 5 electric kilns that were sort of almost always open on those weekends.
Yeah, staff's only typically there during the week, so weekends tend to be open. Some advice for first-time residents. That could probably go to Colby and Brianna.
Yes. So this is my first residency. I came to Amoka straight out of undergrad, and so I think it presented itself as this great opportunity to really, really exercise my skills when it comes to being like self-directed and learning how to just have like a very healthy relationship with the studio. also learning how to push myself, but also in doing that, realizing a lot of habits and a lot of things about myself that you can only learn when you're given that time and space outside of academia. And I think for me, it was like, it's this really nice transition because I'm not totally out of that because I'm really involved in the teaching here, the teaching opportunities with the high school students and with the adults. So I still am holding on to the familiarities within that environment. But I think it's just this really great transition. I'm not completely without the familiarities of the academic world, but I'm also getting a taste of what it's like to be my own artist on my own, as repetitive and redundant as that sounds. It's not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of time to learn how to balance those things. And I think this residency is a great place to do that and to pick and choose what you want to be involved with, and how much time you want to dedicate to either situation.
Excellent. So we got a raised hand. Jennifer.
Hey, thank you first off for doing all of this. It's really nice. I just wanted to follow up, Brianna, maybe you can speak to this, or Nathan. Are there pre-assigned courses for residents, or can residents propose their own workshops, things like that?
Absolutely. Any ideas you got for classes or workshops? Like Colby wanted to teach some mold making workshops, so we got those scheduled. So it's anything and everything you got.
Excellent. Thank you. That's what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm. All right. Another one we got. When does the residency start for short term? I think right now we have Kim Tucker, and Kim will be wrapping up in April. So I think they can start as soon as May, probably probably as soon as May. We're pretty flexible.
And on the application form, particularly for the short-term residencies, we ask you what months you might be available to come, and we'll sort of Jenga it together once we know who the folks are that are coming to figure out that schedule. Because we're also thinking this year that they might be 4 months, they might be 6 months. So we're going to sort of piece it together depending on how you all respond when you apply.
Yeah, perfect. All right, we have Rose with a raised hand. Rose?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Is it okay? Awesome. I was just wondering if you could go into more specifics about the stipend for materials. That's separate from the $100, just like living stipend, right?
Correct. Yeah, the materials stipend. We're generously sponsored by Laguna Clay and Glaze with Brian Van Sel over there. So for that, we submit a donation order. I try to bulk everything together, so getting like a large batch of clay at once, as opposed to doing one donation order per month, if that makes sense. Because with Laguna, sometimes if their marketing team is working on something different, there could be a lag in the donation going through the process. So just getting all the clay at once, or 2 times.
And Nathan, the dollar value has been running. I think it's more Rose's question.
Oh yeah,
how much per person?
Anything. Oh, I couldn't get to the dollar amount.
Sorry.
Really, like anything over.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything over $500. Brian might require a proposal to be written. So I know Colby applied for a larger donation order, and Brian Van Sel just asked for a written proposal of what he planned to do with that amount of clay and materials. But usually it's, upwards of $500 worth of material per donation order. And we could submit maybe 2 or 3 of those per long-term residency.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of a gray area. We're still, I haven't been given like an exact cutoff yet. It's just if they exceed, he requires a proposal and then it still got approved. So Brian's the best. Good question. Thank you, Rose. So what does the application process look like? I don't know if that was just for me from Pam or to
Actually, the next one is, are residents able to use the soda kiln?
Oh, well, Pam sent me a direct message. I don't know if she meant to send it to me or anyway.
Okay. I'm just going back to the top.
Yeah. Soda kilns, yes. We could talk more about that, but yeah, those kilns are available for use as well. Application process, they're live online. You can check them out now. We just require, a written proposal, what you plan to do during the residency, dates that work for you, images of your work, artist bio, stuff like that. But they are available online now. You can check that out. Also email me if you have more questions as you're filling it out. How far from the studio would the apartments be for the longer residencies? One apartment's maybe 2 blocks away, and the other one is sort of a granny flat in the back of a old Victorian house, which is a little further away, but still only maybe 3/4 of a mile up the road. Not very far.
Yeah, I live in that one in particular, and so this is like the living space. It's a great little apartment, and the landlord is really fabulous. She's very, very sweet. I haven't had any issues with parking or getting to and from the studio. It's a great location, really nice place. And it's so rare to have a great landlord. So that's been lovely.
Yeah, we really lucked out when we were looking for an additional apartment, because the first one's donated in kind by Dave Armstrong, the founder. So when we got the funding for an additional resident, having to look around for a place, Debbie, who's renting to Brianna and us right now, it was her first time renting out this place ever. So it was fully furnished and available and clean and fresh, which is good. Moving on, do we do raku firings? No, we don't have really like an outdoor raku kiln. I hear in the past it's been tough to do outdoors in Pomona. So no, it's just
but there have been a number of beach firings over the years, which is 45 minutes to an hour away.
Yeah, and we've also connected with the local urban farm, Lopez Urban Farm. It's right up the road, and done a pit firing there last summer. So there may be more pit firings, but raku firings we just haven't really got into. Could we go into what an artist residency plan looks like? What are we looking for? Just really what you plan to do during your time here, like if you're developing a new body of work or continuing with some ideas you've started at a previous residency. I guess we're just looking for people to kind of have a plan of how they plan to spend their time. I know a lot of residents who have been here in the past kind of hit the floor running and get started right away. Maybe Brianna and Colby could elaborate on what was in their plan.
Colby, you go first.
All right, buzzer beater. Where am I at? I think the reality of it is that the residency plan is going to look really different for everyone. An interesting one, I remember when Nick was putting his clay order together, he had like a visual map of materials, and so that was his way of putting things together. For me personally, I have a little bit of an engineering background, and I think my proposal, if I'm remembering correctly, was written on refractory mortar and being able to like fire clay and then sort of reassemble it with that. But at the end of the day, the funding and the resources and everyone is sort of geared towards just finding interesting proposals and just sort of supporting you in what you're interested in. What'll probably make a more successful proposal is when it's really specific, getting into the detail of, well, everyone could look at the big kilns and say, hey, it'd be great to access the big kilns. But it's like, what are you actually doing and why, right? You don't want to hear just like, big gas kiln. So again, for me, it was saying, I want to do this material research. So having access to that material lab was really important. Just to be able to walk over and go, okay, I'm going to start testing mortar mixes now and be able to do that.
Yeah, mine took more of it. My intentions kind of seemed to revolve a bit more around skills I wanted to learn, both inside and outside of the studio. So when I was writing my letter of intent, I was a little nervous because I didn't really talk about utilizing the big kilns or the soda kilns or these things, but I wanted to focus more on the opportunities for teaching and specifically all of the information on the museum side that I really wanted to kind of be exposed to. So my letter of intent basically focused on, I'm fresh out of school. I really want to continue to explore my current visual language and kind of take those baby steps towards like breaking my own boundaries and getting a little bit uncomfortable and learning how to do that. But at the same time, I really want to focus on the opportunities that are specific to AMOCA. So that required me to do a lot of research, really on the museum side, and looking into the teen council and all these things so that when I was writing, I could be very specific about why I felt I was compatible within those areas that AMOCA was offering.
Great. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, guys. Is an MFA required to be a resident? No, it is not.
I don't have one.
I am checking the application guidelines. Is it U.S. citizens, residents only residency, or do you have international calls? At this time, it's just U.S. citizens for now. Stay tuned for future, but for now, it's just U.S. citizens and residents. Is the short-term residency only for SoCal or all of California? Good question. We, as a guideline, we kind of say like within 50 miles of the studio, just because, if you're coming in 20 plus hours a week, the drive commute can be pretty brutal. Currently, who just ended in December, Chris was living in Long Beach, and I think that was pretty good.
Far enough.
Yeah.
Chris Suarez, just for clarification. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess the gray area would be that if you have friends or family in the vicinity and you can sort of make your own housing arrangements, but that's definitely it's the time length of the short residency and also the fact that we're not providing housing. Because in the first round, when we started the residencies, we found that there are a bunch of regional artists who were looking for some support, which is why we were able to support this third residency slot, which is shorter and more local.
Yep. Are the start and end dates flexible for long-term residency? Yes. Well, like relatively flexible. Yeah. I think, one's probably going to start September. The next one will start in September, and then after that's
I guess actually they may both end up being September this year.
Yeah, they might actually. So yeah, not as flexible, but the long-term, short-term's a little more flexible. Going off with the apartments, would our partners be able to stay with us, or do we need to find somewhere else to stay? Beth, I think we chatted about that a little bit.
I think it would depend on, I mean, they're both sort of like studio apartments. So Brianna or Colby, you could sort of respond to, we'd have to check with Deborah if there was going to be a spouse or partner. I think Dave would probably be open to it, but again, it's not a 1-bedroom. It's sort of a long studio apartment over at Dave's. It's possible.
Yeah.
I didn't end up needing to ask Debbie about that at all, but I feel like she's like really easy to talk to and really willing to work things out with you. So that's really great. But I will say, I mean, 2 people it's a great space size wise, but 2 people it could get a little crammed.
And I think both of them are great if you have guests, like if you have visitors, but to have 2 people living in either of those spaces for the year might not be fab.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a hand raised.
Oh, really quick on that note, though, if anyone is like more curious, because I'm someone who my home space is super important to me. So I was like, Nathan, please send me videos. Like, I want to see like what furniture can I bring? I was really crazy about that part because I'm a nester. So if anyone wants to like get a video of like a walkthrough just to have a better sense of what this specific living space looks like, I am more than willing to like do a private call with you and like show you around and talk to you more about it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
All right. So Yuritsa, we have a question from you.
Hi, yes. So I know that you said that it's U.S. citizens. I was wondering, I'm a DACA recipient, so would that affect the process in any way?
No, you can apply.
Okay.
It's more like if you're here, we don't necessarily care about your citizenship.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and perfect.
I think the only thing just to clarify is that there are taxes involved. So as long as you have a way to process that because of the stipend, I'll just add that on, and you don't have to respond. But just FYI, there are some tax implications.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought I recalled that. Can you talk about museum collections, historical ceramics, access to other collections in other areas?
I can take that one. There's over 13,000 pieces in the collection. Everything from pre-Columbian to today. I would say that we have, good strength in studio ceramics, both sculpture and functional. So that's, and you don't have like unlimited access. You have to go with staff. We can't just let people loose in the stacks. But yes, that can be organized, or if we know that you're interested in a particular topic. When we had one of our artists in residence was interested in pre-Columbian, we have a local collector that's not in our collection, but we were able to hook them up. So, we do have other connections if we know that you're interested in something in particular, but we have a pretty diverse collection.
Beautiful. Thank you. So from Alan, what are the hours you can be at the studio? It's 24/7. You have like a access code and a security code to get in. Probably don't want to sleep there. I think there was one past person who was asking if he could sleep in his car in the parking lot, but again, our parking lot's not always the safest overnight. But yeah, 24 hours all the time is good. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Casper, go for it.
Hi. Do you know how many long-term residents are going to be accepted this year?
2.
Yeah, 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think we got to the end of the chat questions.
One
yeah.
fun thing to share about the collections is that the photo area upstairs was this sort of really fun instance where the work, when it gets taken into the museum, gets processed through there. So anytime you go upstairs to take photographs, you would just like come across and you'd see any of the new work being entered into collections, and that was super fun.
So I shouldn't tell you that we moved the photo lab to the second floor.
Yeah, the upstairs has changed a little bit.
Hey, there's goodies up there though. George is always like, "Don't touch," but you can look.
And then the other great thing too was with the museum, there were a couple opportunities to just get involved with either doing work pickups or other odds and ends, and that was fun. Whether it was schlepping work around LA or even just like a truck shows up and you're like, oh, let's lift some stuff. But it's a pretty active thing where the museum door, it's just like a single door in between museum and studio. It's really sort of porous and open.
Yeah, very, very accessible. And anytime, the residents bring friends in to give them a tour, I always encourage them, like, go show them around the museum too. And yeah, easy access.
Any other questions? So you can just unmute yourself if you want. I think the next question was, is it possible for non-Americans to apply? I think if you're already in the States for other reasons, but we're not really open to international applications at this point. That may change in the future. Every year we're sort of reassessing it.
And a direct message from Pam. Pam asks, what is Pomona like? Pomona's great. It's really cute little downtown, which we're pretty close to. Coffee shop, walking distance. Yeah, train nearby. Wouldn't really hang out at the transit hub. But
Brianna, Colby, do you want to respond to coming in from outside, what that feels like?
Yeah, so I don't know what it is, but Pomona has this very small town energy to it. Like all the young people like know each other. Like my barber, everyone knows my barber. And so now everyone like knows me just through my barber. It's very weird in that way, but it's very, very sweet and kind of close knit. The food is pretty great. The bars are awesome. Great coffee shops. It's got these like it's a weird place, but it's a really nice place to be, I think, when you're like a young artist. It's very nice. I like it.
Colby, anything you want to add as a non-SoCal person?
Yeah, there's times where it's difficult to travel into LA, but connecting with Nate was really good because Nate sort of became one of the sort of party makers in terms of going out to some of the LA galleries. And yeah, we were able to go to a number of openings. The other thing about having the local artists in residence is it's worked out so far that those people have been, we'll joke about them being almost like tour guides, where they can help you connect to some of the surrounding area. Whether that's down in Long Beach or LA or wherever. We did some really nice visits, even with Kim Tucker before she was in residence. That was just great to have that. Wouldn't have ended up in Hollywood any other way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's easy enough, but like don't get caught on the highway like after 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Coming from LA. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
How will we review the applications?
So there's 4 of us that review the applications. So 2 staff and 2 non-staff artists and educators will be participating in this year's process. And it's really a combination of what's your plan? Does the work feel solid? And then we also just try to balance, who's in the studio between the long-term and short-term residents and the style of their work. So it's really sort of, building what we hope is the perfect cohort throughout the next, 12 to 14 months. Does that sum it up okay, Nathan?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Last chance. Anybody else? Colby or Brianna, got anything to add? I'm sure people will think of questions later. And again, feel free to contact us with those questions. We'll put all the contact info in the chat below. Yeah, otherwise.
And there's lots of information on the website as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like despite like having this great info session and then having the description on the website, I am a visual person. Like I want to see it. Like take me through it. So if you are also that person, I will do that for you because I know I'm there. I'm there with you. I feel you. I want to see everything. So like I said, I can put my email and stuff in the chat, but I'm willing to like take a camera and walk through the studio, show you the kitchen and the bathroom, even if you want. Like, I'll show you everything. And that might be like an easier situation to ask a bunch more questions and just get a better sense of the actual environment and all the people in it. So.
Thank you. Question was, how many short-term residents do we accept? Depends on, this year we're being a little more flexible. Of this past cycle, which was the first cycle, we had the short-term residents. We had 3 4-month residents. We're kind of playing with, does it make sense to have 2 6-month residents? We're just finding like minimum 4 months really works. But we're also going to be open this year of should there be less of them and longer? So we're kind of waiting to see what you all ask for.
Oh, and I want to mention that in terms of proximity, the residents right now, at least short-term and long-term, we're in this like lovely little triangle. So we really get to like talk to each other and get to see each other's process. And there's just like a bond that forms. Like I already miss Chris so much. he was like my primary studio mate. And so you just because of proximity, you really get close to the other residents in like a great way.
Good. That's nice to hear.
And when it gets cold, you're by the kilns, so it's warm. It's kind of nice.
How cold.
The studio is not climate controlled out in the main studio. The classroom, the kitchen, and the offices, but otherwise, bring a jacket. It's colder right now.
And there was a question about artist resume. It could be resume or bio, but probably resume just so we can have the facts. But know that each of you is at a different career level. And if there's nothing else, feel free to reach out to Nathan or call if you have questions. And I want to wrap it up, Nathan.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for being here. That was fun. Hope to hear from all of you, see all your applications come through. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day. And thanks to Colby and Brianna for being here too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.